All right. Hi, I'm Serena James. Thank you for watching SpiritualiTEA. I have with me today Libby Kahnke. She is an intuitive counselor, and I would like you to tell us more about that, Libby.
Hi, I'm so thankful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Intuitive counseling. Basically, what I do is I connect with clients, and more times than not, it's usually because there's something going on in their life, and I basically just receive message from the universe and provide them with that information so it can help to inspire them. Possibly some answers to questions that they may have, and basically just to bring them hope and so that they can move forward in a bright way.
Very cool. So you're able to read their energy
Correct.
and but then also receive like those universal or spiritual messages that they might not be tapping into.
Um, sorry. Yes, the way that I receive message is basically visually. That's my primary. So I see things. It's often symbolic, not always, but most of the time it's sort of metaphorical. So I'll receive a message, about a situation, and when I relay that, it's always relevant to that person, even if it's not relevant to me. But I also feel as well, so I can pick up on where they are energetically. I can tell if someone's sad, happy. I just basically feel inside my heart the feelings that they have. And then I'm what you would call an all channeler. So I do actually hear. I know you and I have discussed this before. I can also smell and taste as well. I will get sometimes, a metallic taste or something like that that's somehow relevant. Um, so yes, it's kind of hard to explain in a nutshell, but that's basically how I receive a message. And yeah, it's generally, like I say, inspirational to whomever I'm speaking with. So,
When I've had a reading with you before, what was really cool is, you messaged me a few minutes before I would have taken off to come see you and just said, could you start tuning into what you want to hear, what you want to learn here? And so, me, I was pretty generic and just thinking about that any messages that I needed to know, anything for my highest good. There wasn't a particular situation, and I'm not going to divulge like what my session was, but I was really surprised at what had come up. And but I thought it was so cool, and a message that I definitely needed to hear. It was something that I being or working with other people, running a business in these times, you just kind of think that a lot of the stuff that's going to come to you is going to be revolving around that, or like your mission in this world. and
right.
and so I was very surprised, but very grateful for the messages that you were able to share with me. It was very helpful. So
Awesome.
definitely recommend, visiting with Libby. And so we had, you and I were having some conversations earlier this week that we decided that we really needed to do this chat and share it with other people. So we were talking about premonitions and predicting the future. So Libby's a light worker, an intuitive counselor. I'm a light worker, an energy healer. And so we both kind of have some different approaches and similar views to premonitions and predicting the future. So we just kind of wanted to talk about that for people that are tuning in and curious about this topic. So Libby, what do you want to go ahead and just kind of share your experiences with premonition and what that looks like for you and when you're working with somebody?
Sure. The first time that, so it's interesting actually about premonition. I Prior to sort of understanding my gifts, I didn't realize that I actually received premonition pretty frequently, right? And the way that I kind of figured it out was my ability to stay out of trouble when I was a kid. Um, I did some pretty, I partied as a teenager. I did things, that most teenagers probably do at some point. But I did do it a lot. And but I never got caught. And the reason that I never got caught was I always was able to sort of see where my decisions were going to take me. So if I drove that way instead of that way, well, I know that there's a police officer that's sitting on the corner of First and 32nd, so I can't take that way. So I was always kind of able to stay out of trouble because I saw it coming, I
Sure.
guess. Um,
You could see where option A would lead to, where option B would lead to, and then be able to make a better choice if you wanted to.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And so even though my choices leading up to that point maybe weren't the most, or the best choices, I guess, I was able to make better choices to stay out of trouble. But premonition kind of came to me even then, but the time that I recall like totally receiving premonition was when I was having kind of a hard time in my own life. And I received a premonition that basically, sparked me into living again. And that that premonition was actually, I was there. I was inside of my daughter's body, actually. I felt tears on her cheeks. I felt hair on her face that had stuck to her face. I felt her emotions. I heard her thoughts. And so, but my body, like, or rather my mind was completely there. Like if you had said to me, no, you weren't there, I would disagree with you, right?
Right.
Um, so that was probably the most powerful one, but it had to have been for what it did for me, right?
Right.
But when I'm working with clients, I do often, I guess, get snippets, sometimes the whole premonition will maybe lay out, but I often don't tell them A, that I'm seeing that, and B, that this is your future, right? Because the way that I see it is premonition is not the future, it is a future. And because life events, they unfold through actions, basically. And so if you make a different decision, had I made the decision to take first and go up to 32nd, I would have seen a police officer and had a higher chance of getting pulled over, right? So it's the decisions that you make that sort of lead to that premonition. I think I gave it to you sort of as an equation, premonition equals A plus B plus C plus D, etc. Um, but if you change the A plus B plus,
Variables.
yeah, if you change the variable, then the sum is gonna come out differently.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why I don't give premonition to people, because it pigeonholes them and it makes them only see one outcome.
Right.
Um, and so, and then they sort of make decisions, based on that outcome when the decision that they make might not be the right one, right? They
Right.
have this outcome in mind, but if they're thinking of the outcome and say, okay, well, I bet this decision is going to be the one that's going to get me that outcome, and maybe it's not, because the
Right.
universe is crazy and it does weird things,
Right.
right?
Because you're so nervous or anxious about trying to manifest or not manifest
Right.
that prediction, that you could be potentially taking missteps or steps that you wouldn't want to be taking. I always think
Right.
one of my favorite movies when I was a teenager was The Matrix, and Neo has to see the Oracle, and she basically tells him he's not the one. But Morpheus is so convinced that he absolutely is the one. And I think the Oracle tells Neo that he's not. And then Morpheus is like, she told you what you needed to hear. And then,
Right.
he really is the one. So that's
Mhm.
like, just like that's totally fiction, pop culture, but just really kind of lends to hearing a certain thing really can dictate somebody's action or inaction. And so, we have free will um,
Mhm.
to do what we feel we need to do. So, kind of looking at things maybe more from like an alignment perspective, or it's, I think, for me as a light worker, is that sometimes I feel a little bit hesitant of telling somebody what I definitely do is like, you need to do this, or like
Right.
that's not,
Well,
I'm not here to tell people what to do. It's just to support you on the path that you're on. And if you're off your path, like helping you to adjust the energy to self-correct. And
right. Usually what I do, I actually, especially if someone requests it, right? If they say, tell me my future, I say, well, what future do you want to see?
sure.
Because 9 times out of 10, which I'm sure you know as well, people that are wanting you to tell a future, they have something pretty specific in mind.
Right.
And um, and of course that doesn't always align with what we see. So that's usually how I phrase it, well, what exactly are you wanting to see? And then we can start to look at the path that it takes to go to
Right.
that, make what decisions do you have to make? What changes perhaps do you have to make to your energy?
Right.
All of these things
What's
in order.
blocking you, what's supporting you. And
Right, exactly. Yeah, I love how you always use, instead of positive, negative energy, you
oh,
use beneficial and unbeneficial. And that's actually something that I've really adopted as well, because what's, negative for me or unbeneficial for me might benefit you
right.
or vice versa, right? So I think that, I generally angle it that way as well. These decisions that you're making they're unbeneficial. They're not benefiting your life. In fact, obviously it's kind of going against your mission or your,
Right.
whatever.
Like a
Um,
resistance.
yes. So yeah, I usually try to find out, I mean, usually what will happen is I'll pretty much know what they're asking, right? And I
Right.
don't even really know why I know that, but sometimes I'll, see something. But I usually do try to, kind of put it back on the client, because like you say, premonition is merely just sort of a means to the decisions that, a means to an end in terms of the
Right.
decision that person is making. Um, Sometimes I will give them maybe snippets. So, uh, as an example, I had a client who was saying, do you see this? And I did, right? I did see, what she was basically asking, but I'm not going to tell her, oh yeah, I totally see you, all successful, doing these wonderful things. I don't say that to people because, again, it's very, very much based on the decisions, right, that they make. But I also, if it turns out slightly different than the vision that they think, right, then I'm going to be the one to blame. And
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I
so even,
understand that too.
right. So it's not, I generally am very, very, I step lightly with that. But I did tell her, you know what, I can see this and this. However, the the actions that you have to take are this, this, and this in order to get to that, right?
Right.
So, there's sometimes releasing old energy is
Right.
generally
Oh
always
yeah.
a problem.
Yep.
Um, and so there's things that people have to do to get there. Um,
Well, I
Free
definitely,
will.
for sure. And I understand the fascination with knowing the future. I, for one, I'm not a huge fan of suspense. It's like,
Right.
I want to know what's going to happen. I don't,
Mhm.
I just was talking with a friend, and her sister didn't want to find out the gender of her baby. She's expecting. I'm like, oh, I couldn't even wait to find out. Like, I
Right.
need to know these things. And so I understand and definitely empathize with people who are like, I just want to know if this is going to happen for me or not.
Right.
I had, just randomly, I was on vacation, I was walking, and somebody stopped me and they're like, oh my gosh, your aura, it's gorgeous. It's like, good, I work on it.
Right.
And so, but anyways, and she did want to do like a little reading for me, and felt called to do that. And so this is about probably at least 5 years ago now, but I still think about some of the things that she said that came up, and I wonder, is that going to manifest or not? Is that going to actualize or not? Like um, I wouldn't be. I'm kind of indifferent either way, but it's like some of those things that she said were gonna like happen in my life. I still, I wonder. Like one of them was about having children. It's like,
Mhm.
I have my one child, so it's like, is there gonna be more? Because I don't know, but it's like in my head. So
Well, so one thing to keep in mind too is the perspective of the reader, right? So my perspective of information, there's going to be like a filter, right?
right,
So it's kind of like telephone. The message that I'm receiving, you can't really help but sort of make your own interpretation of it.
sure, yes,
And it's my perspective, it's the perspective of the reader, and so that's the information that we're giving you. However, sometimes there's a slight variation, maybe. So for instance, like with the kiddo situation, maybe it's not that you literally birth children. Maybe it's that you, I don't know, adopt, or maybe it's metaphorical. Does that make
right.
sense?
That's why I'm
Um,
like, are we getting puppies? Like,
well, I almost see, like, I don't know. So this is kind of a weird statement, but like the people that you help, right? A mother's job is to nurture and give comfort and provide peace and healing and brightness, right? There's zero argument that you do that for your clients, right?
right.
So maybe it's a metaphor for, now I'm starting to read, right?
Right. I know. You don't have to read it right now.
I know,
But
but you
yeah,
know
but
what I
you're
mean? Like,
you're
it's
right.
interpretation,
How
right?
it's
It's
coming in. Yeah.
exactly. So, because sometimes the stuff that comes in, um, I do sometimes have to decide, how am I going to say that? Because
Right.
there's times when I receive message and it's, oh, it happened with you, I think, like blunt, right? Super blunt,
Right.
a little
Yeah.
bit abrasive. And I can be, but that's not really in my nature to give someone very blunt information in a very abrasive manner.
Right.
And
It wasn't
so,
that bad. I was able to take it. Yeah.
but that's what I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I, as a reader, have the decision to make whether it's okay, they said it like that for a reason. So I guess I should probably send that to, the person that I'm reading the way that they wanted it stated.
Right.
But the point is that that decision is made by me. right? And so that can muddle something, not muddle, but I guess muddy it a little bit or change it a little bit.
Right. Well, it's still delivering the same, it's still delivering the same message. But yeah, I think you have a good point too of like the possibility of metaphors. I know, especially like with my dowsing, since I'm so often dealing with words on paper and interpreting messages or the full picture just by getting like one key word. A question that I'm asking frequently is this literal or is this metaphorical?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
100%.
and a lot of
It
times it is in metaphors.
or both, which is crazy.
So that's
Um,
all.
so the other day I saw a gentleman. I wanted to call him a kid, but he's a grown man. Um, and I kept seeing his smile, a super white, bright, like straight smile. And I, of course, mentioned this, and I said, it looks like it's metaphorical because it's bright, it's highlighted. Basically, I'm meant to see this smile
Right.
and tell you about it. And she said, and I said, and it looks like he probably has like one of those really bright, infectious smiles. When he smiles, everyone around him smiles. That was sort of my interpretation of it. But she said both are true. Yes, he does have this crazy white, straight teeth smile. But he also is very magnanimous too. So,
Right.
sometimes it can sort of be both, I guess.
Right.
But you're totally
Yeah,
right.
multiple
Oftentimes,
meanings to it.
oh, 100%. So,
So yeah, I just think it's like, it's interesting, just so I think like kind of a big thing is that individuals, you're working with light workers, you're working with people who have premonitions, the people who have the ability to tap into frequencies of events and outcomes and things like that. And so I just think that it's interesting for people to kind of see that perspective and just to always remember that like no matter what you're hearing, you are being supported on your journey, both like spiritually by the universe and when you're working with people like us, like you're definitely being supported to have that, my favorite words, the joy, wellness, and prosperity as you were meant to,
right.
and how to get there. And so sometimes the subject of premonition and predicting futures is like, it's exciting and, but definitely something that we take, um, that we don't really take lightly, because
Oh,
we
absolutely.
just, we're here to support for like the best outcomes for people as possible and helping them try to achieve their desires and seeing how their desires line up with their path.
Right. Yeah. Like I say, generally when someone's asking you something about the future, it's because they want something
Right.
from that, right? And whether it's good or bad, they either want to hear that an outcome is not going to suck so bad, or they want to hear that something that they're doing is going to pay off, right?
Right.
So, yeah, generally with that, I I guess I sort of skirt the question by saying, why do you like, what outcome do you want to see? And why are
Right.
you asking me? Why are you asking me to tell you your future? It's because of a reason. So let's have that reason and then go from there. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yep. There's such a like, like, here's my goal. So if I'm doing this, is that going to happen for me? Or,
Right.
or like you said, people want, they want to, they already have something in mind. They want to know if it's going to come to fruition or not.
Right, exactly. And it's crazy because it can and it can't, right? So,
Right.
depending on what it is. But it really does come down to that equation. The choices plus choices add up to an outcome.
Right.
And so that's what I focus on as an intuitive counselor is you want to see this beautiful outcome. I can see that that's what you're asking me to see. Um, so let's figure out what we need to do to get you on that path. And,
Right. And,
so,
kind of referencing my pop culture, like the Matrix,
uh-huh,
and yes, like, what are you wanting? And then especially like working with spirit to say what are they needing to hear?
right.
What
Oh,
are they needing to
absolutely.
hear to support them? So that's like, I mean, I love when people, are able to channel messages like you do. I just, majority of my work is with like the pendulum dowsing. I do get spirit messages every once in a while, and it's just so cool when you um, to be able to communicate that way
Right.
and
Yeah,
verbalize it for somebody else.
yeah, it can be, I always say to people, there's two sides to a coin. So, if you're looking at sort of the negative side, if you're, I always say that it's kind of stuck in a box. If you're stuck in that perspective, if you're stuck in that box, and only seeing the one side of the coin, it takes a lot of work to flip it over and to try to see the light, right? Because there's always light and darkness. There's always, you know, whatever cliche metaphor you want to use for
Yeah, it's
that.
the polarity. There,
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
always like this spectrum. There's opposite ends. Yeah.
Right. And you could even, again, that sort of trailblazes into premonition, right? If you're in the world of unbeneficial energy, then that's going to be your perspective. That's going to be what you're going to receive, because that's all that you can see, right? If you can't
Right.
see light, if you can't see positive energy, then it's not going to be a part of you. It's not going to be a part of your life.
Right.
um and that sort of snowballs into premonition. If you're in that perspective, if that's the energy you're putting out and receiving, then the outcome is going to be on the more negative polarized side
Right.
of premonition. However, if you start changing and shifting your perspective and seeing, I always say, start with gratitude. If you cannot
Yeah.
see anything positive in your life, then at least think of one thing that you're grateful for.
Yep. And
Whether,
I even tell people, like,
again,
even if you can't think of something that you're grateful for right now, think of something that you desire and give that gratitude. And
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Although it's super hard to give gratitude for something that you don't have when you're in
right.
that box,
Right.
you know?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's definitely an exercise. And it's like gratitude. It sounds so basic. Like you hear it a lot of places, but that really is like just such a fantastic foundation for shifting perspective and shifting
Yep.
experiences.
Oh, 100%. Because, for the most part, like, I have really good days now, right? Um, my average, or my, I guess my perspective is, I count the gajillions of blessings that I have throughout my day, and I sort of forget about the negative. Whereas before, I, tallied up all the negative
Right.
and couldn't really see the beautiful things. So once you sort of shift over to that side, it's not that stuff doesn't happen to you during the day,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
It's not that bad things don't happen, but you it's not as painful, I guess, maybe, when you are counting your blessings.
Right. Well, it's in fourth grade, our teacher had a rule that if you put someone down, what one put down equaled three buildups. So if let's say you call a classmate a name and you got caught, then you had to give three compliments or say something, three nice things about that person. And so I think that's
Yeah.
like what really lends to like what you're saying too, is that when you're constantly focused on the negative, that you really need some more positive to try to counterbalance that. And
Yeah.
so, and once you start doing it and get into the habit of it, like anything else, it just gets easier and easier.
Oh, it totally does.
So
And
Libby,
and
what is your business name? Is it Live Your Light?
It's Find Your Light.
Find Your Light. Okay, sorry about that. So Find Your Light. So where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook. So my little at is Find Your Light MT. It's actually, my page is Libby Kahnke, Intuitive Counselor. I also have a website, which is findyourlightmt.com as well.
All right. Yes, findyourlightmt.com. All right. Well, I think I would love to hear if people want to leave in the comments below, what are your perspectives on premonition and predicting the future? And, what do you think about that? What do you think of our discussion today? Anything that really stood out for you, if you could leave in the comments below. So I think, is there any, last thing you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me do this. And of course, it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. I know. I love chatting with you too. So everybody, thank you so much for watching with love and light. Have a beautiful day.